Imagine a veteran Buddhist monk lying perfectly still inside an fMRI scanner. His breath is slow and steady. Outside the silent lab, scientists are watching a screen showing his brain activity. As the monk sinks into a deep meditative state, something astonishing happens. The part of his brain normally associated with I, me, and mine, the region that defines his self, suddenly goes quiet, utterly silent. What ancient philosophy calls enlightenment, modern science is now calling a measurable neurological shift. This isn't magic, it's none. The data is showing us in real time how to turn off the ego. The question is no longer if this is possible, but how. And, more importantly, what happens when you do. To understand how to turn the self off, we first need to know where it lives in the brain. For decades, scientists have identified a specific network. It's not one spot, but a collection of regions, like a neural city that chatter constantly. This city has a name: the Adult Mode Network, or DMN. And if you've ever felt trapped in your own head, stuck in a loop of anxiety or regret, you have been trapped inside the DMN. This is the story of your brain's ego and the science of how to break free. So, what is this default mode network? Think of it as the brain's background noise. It's the operating system that runs whenever you're not focused on an external task. When you're driving on autopilot, daydreaming about vacation, rehearsing an argument from yesterday, or worrying about a meeting tomorrow. That is your DMN in high gear. Scientists at universities like Gray Matter's Journal at Georgetown refer to it as the center of the ego in the brain. Why? Because its primary job is self-reference. It processes everything through the lens of me. What does this mean for me? What do they think of me? This is your inner narrator, the voice in your head that never, ever stops talking. Now, this network is essential. It allows us to plan, to remember our life story, to have a coherent sense of identity. But there's a dark side. Neuroscientists have found that an overactive DMN is a hallmark of anxiety, depression, and obsessive-compulsive disorder. When the DMN is too loud, too dominant, we get stuck. We are no longer using our thoughts. We are trapped by them. The me story becomes a prison. The inner voice becomes a critic. This is the neurological basis of suffering, self, that has become too loud to hear anything else. But what if you could just, lower the volume? What if you could tell that inner narrator to just be quiet? This is where ancient wisdom and modern fMRI scans collide. The off switch, it turns out, is stunningly simple. It's the one thing you've been doing your entire life without ever thinking about it. Your breath. Meditation, specifically mindfulness meditation, is the practice of anchoring your attention to the present moment, usually the physical sensation of your breath. And here is the critical part. When you are truly focused on the now, your brain cannot neurologically be in default mode. You are shifting networks. You are consciously moving your brain out of the me network and into the now network. Take my word for it. Let's look at the data. Dr. Judson Brewer, a neuroscientist at Harvard, now at Brown University, conducted a grounding study. He put both experienced meditators and non-meditators into an fMRI scanner. The results were staggering. The experienced meditators had significantly reduced activity in their DMN. Their inner ego narrator was quiet. But here's the kicker. This wasn't just while they were meditating. The researchers found that the DMN stayed quiet even when the meditators were just resting, not actively meditating. Think about that. Through practice, they hadn't just learned a trick. They had fundamentally changed their brain's default state. They had forged a new baseline for their consciousness, one that was less me, and more now. This is neuroplasticity in action, the brain's ability to rewire itself based on experience. Silencing the EMN is the mechanism. But what is the experience? What does it feel like when the ego center of your brain goes offline? This leads us to one of the most profound and often misunderstood concepts in all of human consciousness: ego dissolution. Ego dissolution, or ego death, is a state where the very boundaries of the self dissolve. When the DMN goes quiet, its constant job of separating you from the world also stops. The brain temporarily forgets to maintain the border. The result is an experience of profound connection. People who achieve this state, either through deep meditation or other means, struggle to describe it. They report feeling their body merge with the environment. The hard line between I and other becomes porous and disappears. One experienced meditator, describing the state of Samadhi, wrote, "I immediately felt a complete dissolution of personal identity, emerging into timeless pure awareness identical to my previous Samadhi experiences." It is the direct neurological experience of oneness. It's not a philosophical idea. It's a perceptual reality. The brain stops generating the illusion of a separate self. For a moment, the inner critic is gone. The anxiety about tomorrow is gone. The regret from yesterday is gone. There is only the present. Only pure, unified consciousness. This experience is REWIRES. It's the neurological reset button. And incredibly, science is finding that this reset might be the key to healing some of our deepest mental wounds. But here's the most fascinating part. Modern science is just the latecomer to this party. They've only just arrived. The map for this entire journey was drawn thousands of years ago. What neuroscientists are now calling DMN suppression and ego dissolution. Ancient traditions have had names for millennia. In Buddhism, it is anatta, or non-self, the core insight that a fixed, permanent, independent I simply does not exist. In the ancient yoga philosophy of India, it is Samadhi first, the highest state of meditation, where the mind becomes one with the universe. It is the experience of pure union. It's for thousands of years, these were considered mystical, religious, or philosophical concepts, inaccessible to scientific study. Until the 1970s, the Dalai Lama himself initiated a dialogue with Western scientists. He essentially challenged them, saying, "You have remarkable tools for understanding the outer world. We have refined methods for understanding the inner world. Let's work together." This led to the creation of the Mind and Life Institute, a collaboration that changed science forever. Suddenly, enlightenment was no longer just a word, it was a hypothesis. Compassion wasn't just a feeling, it was a measurable brainwave. Journalist Jeff Warren, commenting on this new field of contemplative nunmi, noted, "This is no longer the usual story of meditation helping reduce stress. Science is now seriously studying how meditation disables the feeling of a separate self." Science wasn't discovering this. It was finally just catching up. And to do that, they needed to study the Olympic athletes of meditation, the monks, who had trained their minds for tens of thousands of hours. And one man in particular would change everything. This is Matthieu Ricard. He holds a S.D. in molecular biology, and he is also a fully ordained Tibetan Buddhist monk. He is the perfect bridge between these two worlds. Ricard volunteered for a series of grounding studies at the University of Wisconsin-Madison and the Max Planck Institute. He and other veteran meditators would become the living proof. The results from Ricard's brain scans were frankly off the charts. He was nicknamed the happiest man in the world because his brain showed a capacity for positive emotion and well-being that the scientists had never seen before. But it was how his brain was different that shocked them. In one test, Ricard was asked to meditate on compassion. When a normal person is asked to think about the suffering of others, their brain networks for pain and negative emotion light up. We literally feel their pain. This is empathic distress, and it leads to burnout. When Matthieu Ricard meditated on compassion, those negative centers remained silent. Instead, different regions of his brain, areas associated with positive emotion, love, and resilience, lit up with activity. He was able to feel for people deeply without being crushed by their suffering. He had, through 40,000 hours of training, rewired his brain to be fundamentally more compassionate and resilient. He wasn't the only one. Other studies on veteran Vipassana meditators who practice mindfulness of breath showed similar stunning results. They found 1. DMN suppression. As Dr. Brewer found, their ego network was permanently quieter. Its gamma waves. During deep meditation, their brains produced extremely powerful, high-frequency gamma waves, as a sign of millions of brain cells firing in perfect unified synchrony. a state of hyper-awareness. 3. Thicker brains. They had measurably more gray matter in parts of the brain responsible for attention and emotional regulation. Like the prefrontal cortex, their brains weren't just behaving differently, their brains had structurally changed. They had quite literally built a better brain. So what does all of this do? fMRI scanners, the quiet networks, the gamma waves, the ancient philosophies, what does it all mean for us? It leads to one profound and inescapable conclusion. Enlightenment is not a miracle. It's a skill. The human brain is not a fixed static object. It is a dynamic living river of potential. Neuroscientists call this neuroplasticity. What this means is that your brain is constantly being shaped by your experiences and, more importantly, by what you pay attention to. Just as learning the violin rewires the part of your brain that controls your fingers, practicing meditation rewires the part of your brain that controls yourself. The monks and meditators in these studies are not superhuman. They are not genetic marvels. They are simply people who have systematically trained their minds day after day. As researcher Richard Davidson concluded, qualities like well-being, compassion, and even enlightenment are not fixed traits. They are the product of skills that can be trained. You can train your brain to be less anxious. You can train your brain to be more compassionate. You can train your brain to quiet the inner critic. The map to enlightenment is being drawn, not by mystics in a cave, but by neuroscientists in a lab. And it shows that the highest states of human consciousness, the peace and unity described by sages for centuries, are not just a philosophical dream. They are a trainable, achievable, neurological reality. From our breath to our consciousness, the path is clearer than ever before. The question is no longer, if you can change your brain. It, quote, will you?